Hello, and the warmest of welcomes to episode 3 of Not If, But When, the podcast which answers all the questions you've ever had about all things funeral, and many of the ones which may have never even occurred to you. My name is Lyndsey Conquest. I'm an independent celebrant, and I'm based in Bedfordshire.
And I'm Kirstie Atherton. I too am an independent celebrant, and I am based all the way up in the northwest of England. Welcome to episode 3. Why does planning a funeral even matter? Lyndsey, before we start, would you like to share something life affirming with us all from the last week of your life?
Yes, I will. So, work related, as it often is. So, this week, I sort of stumbled upon a moment of serendipity, if you like, when I conducted 2 funerals on one day. One was for a vibrant young man, and another for a gentleman in his late 80s. I couldn't help but notice this remarkable parallel that wove their stories together. And I think despite the years between them, their characters sort of bore uncanny resemblances. I don't know about you, Kirstie, but I often find there is a sort of thread, if you like, that weaves through the lives of the people I write services for.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I sort of find it comforting and heartwarming in a way. So that's my little sort of story from this week. Um, how about
Gorgeous.
you? Yeah,
Yeah.
how about you,
That's,
Kirstie? What's your life affirming in your world since last we podded? What happened? Tell
I think,
me.
oh, loads of stuff happened, but I won't go into all that. So work-wise, um, yeah, very much similar to you, actually. The serendipity of this work is just it's delightful, actually, what it is. And listening to you use words like that and like uncanny and remarkable, and it is all those things. Definitely, I think that we're both sorry to give the old modern day cliche, but that we're both kind of on a journey and on this path that we've decided that we're going to walk down. That there are links, there is a thread, and it makes sense, and that's really reassuring. So my life affirming thing of this week really is just being really super conscious of waking up in the morning, just feeling so grateful that this is my job, you know,
Yeah,
um, that this is the thing that we've found to do, and just feeling really lucky in that
yeah,
sense. Although I'm not sure if lucky is the word, but yeah, fortunate maybe. I don't know. Yeah,
yeah. Either way,
gratitude.
yeah. Gratitude for what we do, definitely. Yeah, I too wake up in the morning and just, yeah, feel really grateful for what we do.
Yeah,
And doing it together as well, to be able to share that with you and talk
I
about sort of our
know.
journey. So
It's perfect, isn't it?
it
Yeah.
is, yeah. Okay. So, right, Kirstie, shall we now move on to our main topic for this
We
week,
shall.
where we're going to discuss what a funeral is actually for.
Yes.
So, obviously, a funeral serves many purposes, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Beyond simply the disposal of the body. Now, while it is a practical aspect of the process, it holds significant symbolic and I think emotional value for those that we leave behind.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
So, firstly, I think there's the ritual, isn't there, Kirstie? It's a ritualistic farewell, if you like, to the person who has
Yeah.
died, allowing loved ones to pay their respects and to honour that life that was lived.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's something that we as humans have done across the globe for as long as anybody can record. There
Yeah,
is a real need for that ritual, for
yeah,
that acknowledgement. And it's at its very base level, apart from, as you say, the practical. That's what it is. It is a ritual to mark that moment, and it's really important.
yeah,
Um, I think that what we slightly sometimes underestimate is how important that ritual is in our grieving process. And I know that there's a lot of research around this. Um, that basically, to summarize in a totally non-technical, totally non-scientific way, is that the more rewarding, the more appropriate, the more comforting that ritual, that funeral is, the smoother the grieving process can be,
Yeah.
so it's that important, really.
Yeah, definitely. Just helps them sort of navigate through their grief, doesn't it? A
Yeah.
bridge, I suppose, between the past and the future. And
Oh, that's a nice, yeah,
yeah,
that's a nice image, that, Lyndsey. Yeah,
yeah, I
absolutely, a
think
bridge.
it's
Yeah.
sort of, and I think whether there's sort of the rituals that we perform during a funeral, whether they're religious, cultural, or, I mean, obviously, as celebrants, we help the family find ways that are right for them, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It just helps them signify that transition, really, and yeah, help them navigate their grief, and hopefully begins a process towards some sort of acceptance of what's happening or what's happened, and eventual peace. Hopefully that's what we would hope for our families, that we can offer them comfort, and that they can look back at that funeral service and just feel that they've really offered their loved one that farewell, and
Yeah.
they've just done them justice and their life justice.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know whether it's a colloquial thing, but people around here very often use the phrase, "Oh, you've done him proud."
Yeah,
Um, yeah,
yeah.
is that a national thing?
Not quite with the accent, but they definitely say the same thing down here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, so I think really, obviously the disposal of the body is the practical necessity, but as we've spoken about, the funeral is much more than that. It's
Yeah.
meaningful, culturally significant, and it
Yeah.
just honors the person that's died, supports those that are left living,
Yeah.
and I think brings the community together. It's sort of a shared humanity during loss, isn't it? It's
Yeah, and
yeah,
it's massive. It shouldn't be underestimated from that point of view. It really does matter, doesn't it? And
yeah,
I think acceptance is a really big part of it.
yeah,
Actually, we'll go on to talk about coffins and what not in the future. But I
yeah,
think, the actual sort of seeing the fact that their body is there,
hmm,
whilst upsetting, obviously, is a real. There's It's very difficult to remain in denial
yeah.
at that point, and that's why it's such a significant moment, and that's why it really matters that it goes well, isn't it?
Definitely, definitely. And I think that sort of maybe leads us on in with the word denial, of maybe talking about why people actually avoid the discussion.
Yeah,
What are those reasons that people that stops people from discussing
yeah,
death, dying, and their funeral wishes as
yeah,
well?
absolutely.
Obviously the fear of death is a huge one. We all
Yeah,
fear death, don't
of
we? Even
course.
us as
Yeah,
celebrants,
absolutely.
we fear it, and but I think, if we just give it that moment, give death and the conversation that surrounds it just a space at our table, just for a moment, it can perhaps provide a sense of control over a situation that we actually rarely have much control over at all.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And as you say, it's not about removing the fear.
No.
It's just about acknowledging the reality, and harking back to the name of our podcast,
Yeah,
not if but when, the sentences that start with if anything ever happens to me. And I think part of this is a almost a fear of offending somebody, that by
yeah,
raising the subject, and I think this is really important when people are later on in their life, kind of later on in their years,
yeah,
um, that people feel a little bit like, well, can't talk to my mum about a funeral because she's just going to think that I want to get rid of her,
yeah,
which, obviously none of us want that.
yeah,
And I think that's a real barrier. I think people feel like in bringing it up, they're concerned that that person will think, oh well, you're looking forward to life without me then, and it's just
mm,
not the case at all. Um,
definitely. Which I think sort of, backs up why it's important to have those discussions as soon as, isn't it, rather than and
yeah,
leaving it to that point. So I think, and as well, it's the fear of being sort of depressing, isn't it? I recently, I was asked a few questions by a local newspaper, and they posted the article on Facebook, and there were some comments on that just went, well, this is depressing. Oh, ho, 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 because it was in December. And just instantly you get these reactions that people are just like, this is just dark and depressing. And why would you
Yeah.
even talk about it? And I
Yes.
think we're trying to get over that stigma, aren't we? We're trying to get
Yeah.
people to say, it doesn't have to be depressing. We're just saying, just
Yeah.
ask someone what their favorite piece of music is. How would they like
Yeah.
to be remembered the most by their loved ones?
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
important moment in their life is so significant that they don't
Yeah.
want people to forget about it. So it's actually
Absolutely.
talking about your life, and how can that be depressing?
No, exactly. It's actually the opposite. It's joyful, isn't it? And
Definitely.
yeah, and I think people are very often surprised when you tell them how much laughter there is in our work.
Yeah.
Family meetings, there's often lots of tears, there's often lots of sadness, there's sometimes extremely difficult, but the vast majority of them have an awful lot of raucous laughter in them
Yeah.
because people are funny. We're just funny. We do
Yeah.
stupid things and have weird ideas about, the way we go about things. We all do.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that sort of that it's almost like shutting it down, isn't it? In saying, oh yeah, right, okay, well, this is depressing. I'm not going to engage with this. Well,
Yeah.
that's almost to me that I translate that as saying this scares the bejesus out of me and I'm not
Yeah.
engaging because I can't handle it. You know,
Yeah.
we'd all rather not think about it. We would all prefer that everybody we love is going to live forever. But the
Yeah.
reality is that's just not going to happen. Human bodies are finite and that's it.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it, isn't there?
Yeah.
So let's have a think about, and we can open those discussions. And obviously, that needs to be done as gently as possible with people that we love. Um, but there are real benefits to doing that, aren't there? To expressing your wishes to other
Yeah.
people. And the first one for me, and I'm sure you'll agree, Lindsay, is the avoidance of conflict. Because how many families have you sat with who are, they might not be at war. Some of them are. Some of them are at,
Some of them are.
absolute nuclear levels of war.
Yeah.
But there's discord of some point or another. And my starkest example of this is an example of a lady who was fairly elderly and was really open about discussing what was going to happen after her breathing ended. And she'd seen the advert on the TV that saves all your loved ones from having any stress around your funeral. And she had two daughters. She'd said to one of them, that's what I want. I want a direct cremation. I don't want a funeral at all. And this daughter said, okay, mum, that's absolutely fine. She said the same thing to the other daughter, and the other daughter said, oh, mum, why? What's making you think that? And basically her argument was the argument that we hear a lot about direct crem, which does have a place, absolutely does have a place.
Yeah.
But the argument that, well, I want to save you the upset. I don't want a funeral because I don't want you to be upset. And she had the wherewithal to say, mum, I'm going to be upset because you're dead. I'm not going to be upset because we're having a funeral for you. um
Exactly.
yeah, now in that conversation, she was able to communicate that to her mum, explain why it was important to the people who were left that they did have a funeral. But then after their mum's death, the daughters just could not agree. The one was like, well, mum did express that wish, but after talking about it, this is what we decided. And because they'd not had that follow-on conversation, the mother and the other daughter, we actually ended up with a situation where we planned a funeral, everything was sorted, and we were literally stood outside the crem with the coffin in the hearse, with the back of the hearse open, wondering where the other side of the family were. Someone made a quick phone call and they simply said, no, we're not coming. This is not what my mum would have wanted. Um,
Right.
and that's those kind of cracks that appear in those really raw moments are cracks that are very, very hard to heal from, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, they are. And I think, but yeah, and that's why by putting your sort of wishes in place beforehand, you're helping your loved ones, aren't you?
Yeah.
Because, grief opens up wounds, or, that were already there. And
Yeah.
to add to that, when people are dealing with their own grief in various different ways, whether they're angry or in denial, or
Mhm.
it's so hard, and what you want is for that family to come together as much as they possibly can do.
Yeah,
And not all families are close, but
yeah,
just avoiding that conflict will help every family,
yes,
just that little bit, when it comes to planning their loved one's funeral. So yeah, a
yeah.
perfect example, Kirsty. Yeah,
Thank you. Yeah, sad, really sad
it
example,
is.
and yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but in our role then, and I know you feel the same, you do very often find yourself in the middle of that,
Yes.
or people trying to put you in the middle of that, and us resisting that, you know, because they want someone to kind of be on their side and say, this is the right thing to do, but that isn't our role, is it?
No.
Our role, we're facilitating the decisions, we're not making the decisions.
No. And I think as well, putting your wishes in place, it doesn't mean that your loved ones can't then have a say in different parts of the service, because we've
Oh,
always said, haven't
absolutely.
we, that that funeral is for the living,
Yeah,
probably first and foremost, really, to help them through their grief. And to bring them some comfort, but to have
yeah,
those sort of specific elements written down in your wishes just
yeah,
helps to guide your family with those important decisions. And then if they want to add in, a certain song or a certain reading or something that's
yeah,
special or brings them comfort, they can,
yes,
of course, do that. It's just giving
yeah,
you that main structure that you want, so that your loved ones know, right, this is what mum or dad wanted. We're going to
yeah.
do that. And then actually, I'd also like to do this. And
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, this is not what we're talking about in terms of expressing your funeral wishes. Is a different thing to making a funeral plan, isn't it? Because
yeah,
a funeral plan it tends to be a financial um commitment, tends to be it's completely separate. And I know that there are funeral plans that you can put specific wishes into, but what we are talking about is saying these are the things that ideally I would like, and it's an exercise of trust. It's not binding in any way. It's not like a will,
no,
so actually, if those funeral wishes, if that envelope, sealed envelope of funeral wishes is opened after that person's death, and someone thinks, well, I'm not bloody doing this, I absolutely hate Tina Turner or whatever it
yeah,
is, that's on them. But they know they've made that decision. Then they know
yeah,
that they've done that, and that's fine, and that might be reflective of their relationship with the person who's died anyway, but
absolutely.
it is just trying to not further add to the distress that people are already experiencing at that moment, isn't it?
Yeah,
And taking particularly the big decisions out of their hands for their
yeah,
sake.
yeah,
um
definitely.
yeah, I know of people who are very, very elderly, people within my life and the life of my friends who, although they're really very elderly, they have no idea, the people around them, whether they even want to be buried or cremated. So even if it's just that, you
Yeah,
can just drop that in a conversation, can't you?
yeah,
I know you don't want to discuss this, and I don't really want to discuss it either, but I just want you to know that when the time comes, I really want to be whatever, cremated,
yeah,
buried, whatever it is. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, that just makes a huge difference, doesn't it? Just those things, just
Yeah. Yeah.
anything really, anything that you can share, just to take that, the bigger decisions out of their hands
Mm.
is, will help.
It's an act of love, isn't it,
It
really?
is definitely an act of love. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. So in terms of having the dialogue, obviously that's the first step, really, and approaching that in a gentle way. Your relationships better than anybody does, so you know how to do that with particular individuals, and then just recording those wishes. And there's no set way in which to do that, really, is there?
No,
um so I
I
know
think
that.
you, oh, sorry, Kirsty.
No, I was going to say you and I both have kind of documents that we've produced ourselves that people
Yeah.
can contact us to access, where really guides you through some of the choices, um, some more detailed than others, some of the choices that you might want to express your wishes about. So, if anybody wanted to get in touch with either of us, that's a possibility to do that, to record your wishes in that way. But it can be completely informal, can't it? It doesn't have to be in a
Yeah,
formalized
completely
document.
informal. That's what I was going to ask you a minute ago, actually, Kirsty. So I know that you had a story, didn't you, of a lady and how she
Oh,
documented her funeral wishes.
are you thinking about the red biscuit
I
tin?
am thinking about the red
I love the
biscuit
red
tin.
biscuit tin. Yeah, it's absolutely gorgeous. So this lovely lady who lived well into her 90s, she made it very clear to her family that in a particular cupboard there was a red biscuit tin that nobody was to open, and that they were only allowed to open it when she was no longer with them. And when they did, after her death, they opened it. It was just full of treasure. It was just full of treasure.
Mm,
Not jewels and it wasn't like a pirate's chest, but it was little scraps of paper, things written on the back of receipts, torn off envelopes,
mm,
um, a lot of things about, things that she'd like to be read, music that she would like there, like a little message that she wanted people to hear. She'd said, it's really important, whoever does it, I want them to say thank you to all my friends because they really made my life what it was. Just little snippets of things like that. And it was in no order. It was like they took the lid off and it was like
oh,
it's like a jack in a box of like random scraps of paper, but it was gorgeous. So it doesn't have to be formally done at all. It
no,
doesn't even really have to be discussed, as long as it's somewhere prominent. If you want
yeah,
to do it and you find it too hard to discuss with people, do your own funeral wishes, write them down, seal them in an envelope, and stick them right next to wherever your life insurance policy is, because it will be found.
yeah, definitely. Even just going as like simply as putting something in your phone and letting your loved ones know that it's there.
Oh, you're
I've got
so
a
modern.
I know I am modern, but funnily enough, though, Kirstie, quite a few people are out there, so we probably should give them
What?
an option. Like, I know, perish the thought, but
It's
I
just
have
me being
got.
left behind,
I
isn't it?
know. I have to admit, I do have a playlist in my phone of the songs that I would like. I have a
I would
folder in
expect
my
nothing
phone, and
else.
I'm announcing that now so everyone knows it's there. And it's called When I'm Gone. And in that folder are the music that I love. And, being the vain person that I am, even the photo that I expect them to put on the chapel screen, just in case they choose one of the awful ones.
Not vain, perfectly sensible,
But
Linz.
yeah, just so it's just simple, even things like that, just to
Yeah,
help with choice of music, notes in your phone.
yeah,
If you haven't got that little red biscuit tin, or you're not someone that files everything perfectly, which I know there's lots of people that aren't, there's
yeah,
just little things like that. As long as you let someone know that
yeah,
it's there.
yeah. And
Yeah,
also make sure that there is somebody in your life who knows the passcode for your phone so that they can access it.
definitely.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. Gosh,
yeah.
look at you bringing us up into the 21st
I
century,
know
Lynn.
you know it's going to happen.
I'm just going
I
to go and get my
try.
quill out to do my
Oh
list.
dear. Okay. Right. Well, I really hope that this third episode has helped you to have a better understanding of what funerals are and why they matter so much to us all. Knowledge is definitely power, and the knowledge that there's a whole world of choices you can make helps you to make those choices in an informed way. Loss of control can be one of the scariest parts of grief, and actively making choices brings a sense of control back into our lives.
Perfectly said. Absolutely, it does.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So hopefully you have enjoyed today's episode. If you have, then feel free to tell all of those you care about that guess what, is nothing to be scared of.
no,
Um, and that they too can find us on Spotify. Next week's episode looks at the elephant in your purse, or your wallet, or your phone app, or your stash of crypto, whatever it is, if you're dead modern like Lyndsey is. Um, we will get into the often dreaded money talk, and we're going to get it out of the way early doors so it's done and dusted, because we know it's nobody's favourite subject.
no, it's not. But hopefully you will stick us back in your ears for that one. Until then, embrace every day whilst embracing the inevitable. Bye.
Bye.